Yo, yo, what's up, Lynch Mode? Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube Live, the Fast Break Sports Hour in full effect. Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. Monday Night Football, that's a wrap. If y'all caught that, y'all caught a defensive struggle. Man, we're going to get into this baseball playoff race, and we're going to touch on a couple subjects in the NFL coming up for week 3 and get ready for this Thursday night game. We're only 2 days away from week 3. When you talk about the New York Jets going to Cleveland, got a couple things on that. But man, Monday Night Football. I hope you guys are having a good day so far, and hope you guys have a great rest of the Tuesday. But Monday Night Football, we saw Russell Wilson against Mitchell Trubisky. Two different sides of the coin there. You talk about Russell Wilson, who now, and it's crazy to say, we're talking about a 7-year vet coming into his 7th season in Russell Wilson, and he's trying to do everything he can to keep the Seattle Seahawks relevant, especially with everything they've lost defensively. Also on the offensive side, the defense for the Seattle Seahawks isn't looking as bad as what people might have thought they would. Because of all the players that had left in the offseason, especially in the secondary. If you guys were watching the game yesterday, they kind of had a little promo talking about how from the 11 starters last year on the defensive side for the Seattle Seahawks, they've lost 8 of those 11 starters. And you would think, man, with that kind of turnaround, this team would probably wouldn't fare so well, giving up more yardage, more points than what they have in these first 2 games. And with the first two games were on the road. Last week at Denver, yesterday at Chicago. So they're going to be happy. They're going back home for a little home cooking. Final score yesterday was Chicago 24, Seattle 17. Wasn't even that close towards the end of the game. First half was, pretty close, pretty back and forth for a game that really didn't have too much offense going on. Neither team was able to get anything going on the ground. Jordan Howard wasn't able to get anything going. You look at Seattle with Carson and Rashad Penny for the Seattle Seahawks, the rookie from San Diego State, weren't able to get anything going consistently on the ground game. So anything they were able to provide through the air was a plus. Mitchell Trubisky wasn't too bad, threw for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, but had the 2 picks. You're going to get that from a young quarterback. What I like about Mitchell Trubisky is he'll make a mistake, but he'll come out like if nothing had happened. And he makes plays, man. Sometimes you're like, man, where you running? And you're running like he'll run to the left when everything else is going to the right, and then he'll turn back around when nobody's there. But then he makes a beautiful pass like he did yesterday to Tariq Cohen, where it looked like he was lost, but man, he turns around, nice little pass to Tariq Cohen. That's what Mitchell Trubisky is going to give you. He's going to give you a chance when the play looks like it's broken down to extend the play, make some plays. Again, still a young quarterback and still going to have the growing pains. But it's always good to get a win while you're going through these growing pains. And you got to give it up to Seattle's defense for getting those 2 picks. And Shaquille Griffin, man, that was, the story's been told there with the twin brothers, Shaquem and Shaquille Griffin for the Seattle Seahawks. He had 2 wonderful picks yesterday. One off of it was somewhat of a underthrown ball to Allen Robinson, but he still had to jump up, make the catch. And then the second one off a tip ball where he had to dive and make that interception. So two great plays from one half of the Griffin twin brothers, and Seattle's not that bad defensively. It's still going to be tough because again 0-2. We expected the Seahawks to struggle. I think their struggles come more so on the offensive side. The offensive line is still having issues. And then when you talk about them still missing Doug Baldwin, who the dude he's good, man. He's like a baby Steve Smith. Let's be real with it. He finally breaking out of his shell the last couple years. He's been out the first 2 weeks. This third up and coming game against the Dallas Cowboys remains to be seen. Still going to be questionable for that game. Not sure if he's going to be able to go. But with also the loss of Jimmy Graham, they lost Paul Richardson. Those are key parts to that offense. And Russell Wilson is still able to get things done. I mean, he threw for 226, 2 touchdowns, had the 1 pick. That 1 pick was the clincher, because at the moment they were down 17-10, and that's when Prince Amukamara, man, he just picked 6, 49 yards out, and that really put the nail in the coffin. The Seahawks were able to come down, score a late touchdown, unable to get the onside kick. And the onside kick was a drop kick. That was crazy. I've never seen that. They tried the drop kick, the new kicker for the Seattle Seahawks. I believe his last name's Dixon. And that drop kick was pretty awesome, but not successful. And again, when you're down 14 points with less than 30 seconds to go, really, are you in the game? But Seattle fought hard. Just that one mistake deemed costly for Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. But with that being said, Chicago gets the victory, and their defense is ridiculous. Khalil Mack still making his presence felt. You talk about pass rushes of the past compared to the pass rushers of now. Man, I think if we've ever seen anybody close to Lawrence Taylor, you're seeing him and Khalil Mack in the NFC. And it's crazy because they were both in the NFC. Khalil Mack obviously got traded a little over a couple weeks ago from Oakland to Chicago, and you wonder if John Gruden is man, he's like hindsight 2020, shouldn't have traded him. He keeps getting the questions. He obviously has to reject those questions and say, you know what, we're not worried about that. That's in the past. But Khalil Mack, man, I'm not saying he's Lawrence Taylor, because Lawrence Taylor is probably the best pass rusher, if not the best defensive player of all time. But man, when you want to compare Khalil Mack, you compare Khalil Mack to Lawrence Taylor. Khalil Mack, Von Miller, 1 and 2, however you want to put it. When you talk about just dominant pass rushers, and Von Miller is like a Derek Thomas. So you see similarities in these guys. The torch has been passed pretty well and carried pretty well by Khalil Mack and Von Miller. But that defense, man, the Chicago Bears defense, a lot of young guys with Roquan Smith. They got Floyd coming back from a hand injury. Obviously, you got Danny Trevathan running that linebacking core, the veteran, the Super Bowl champion, and they're hungry. This defense, especially with Khalil Mack getting his record deal done, obviously with Floyd, young up-and-coming pass rusher, Roquan Smith patrolling the middle with Danny Trevathan. Danny Trevathan's the vet here, so he's probably not going to be there 3 or 4 years down the line. But you can expect this defense to be together and to be dominant for the next 4, 5, 6 years, depending on how everything goes. They need slightly little help on the back end. We talk about the safeties, but the defense is looking good. For a young team, this is how you want to build your team. And the receivers, Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, a rookie receiver who caught a touchdown yesterday. Trey Burton has been a key acquisition in the offseason. The backup tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, now with the Bears. He's been a key part to this. And Mitchell Trubisky loves him some Trey Burton. And he's been very helpful in big plays. And then you got the two-headed monster in Jordan Howard, who's the pounder, who, he can still catch the ball out the backfield, but that's going to be Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen's going to provide that speed out of nowhere. And the Bears, though I don't believe they're going to fight for a playoff spot this year, they're right there. They're on the cusp. They're that team that next year, I believe, will be fighting for a wild card and might shock some folks in that division next year. I'm not to say that they're not going to be a pretty good team this year, but they're going to have ups and downs because of the young quarterback, because of the young defenders. Khalil Mack's going to anchor that defense, but still, you still got some young guys on that defense, got some young guys on the offense. So Chicago Bears, things are looking up, man. Don't try to hurry this along. I know you Bear fans want it now, but see this thing through, man. That's how you grow. Get to 8-8, maybe 9-7. Who knows? Something can happen there. And then next year, you be ready to take your spot into the tournament, into the January tournament that the NFL calls the playoffs. So Chicago Bear fans got to be happy for that. Jeff, you got to be happy for that. And a great game for the Bears yesterday, 24-17. The Bears have the lowly Arizona Cardinals next Sunday. And like I mentioned, the Seattle Seahawks get their home opener against the Dallas Cowboys, who also have their struggles on offense. This might be a 13-10 game. Remains to be seen. But watch out for that this Sunday. I'm gonna switch gears here and get into this playoff race in Major League Baseball, more so the National League, and then I'll get to some more NFL right after. But with that being said, it's trimmed up. The National League wild card race, the division races, it's trimmed up now. So we get 5 teams on each side. You get the 3 division winners and 2 wild cards get into the playoffs. And right now, I believe we have the Braves, who, I know, but when I say believe, I'm projecting here. I believe the Braves are going to win the East. That's locked up. And then you have the Cubs, who are 2.5 ahead of the Brewers. I believe they have it locked up in the Central. I know there's still 11 games left, but 2.5 game lead. And the Cubs, they just been treading water. They're going to win when they need to win. Right now, they're having a series against the Diamondbacks, who have just faltered, and who I officially eliminated from the playoff race last Friday or last Thursday. And now it's just more official because they haven't gained any ground. But back to the Cubs. I got the Cubs in the Central. They will be the number 1 seed in the National League. The Braves, it remains to be seen, though they're going to win the division. They're going to get either the 2 seed or the 3 seed. And the reason why I say that, because it's going to be up to them or the LA Dodgers when you talk about the 2 seed and the 3 seed. The Dodgers, who have won 5 out of 6 and are now back in first place after beating the Colorado Rockies yesterday 8-2. And I believe this is where, the Dodgers right now are in the race with the Rockies. They're only a half game up, and it's in the win column. They both have the same amount of losses. But when you see how these teams are trending at this moment, especially with the Rockies, who just lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants, and then lost last night to the Dodgers in the fashion that they lost, and then they got to play the Dodgers tonight with Kershaw on the bump. The Rockies right now need to be careful, because they can be that next team and final team out of the race. They have to make sure they don't get, these next 2 games with LA. They got to make sure they don't get swept, because they get swept and the Cardinals provide a little bit more cushion in the wild card. You could be talking about Rockies, man, going fishing for the rest of this summer going into fall, because, again, you got Kershaw on the bump for the Dodgers. They play tonight. So I know the Rockies are going to put Freeland out there, but at the same, and he's going to put up a hell of a pitching game. That's what Freeland does. But Kershaw, Freeland, you pick, and then yesterday Trevor Story getting that injury, who's arguably been an MVP candidate, especially the last 3 months of the season. He put himself into that ballot. Injured, issue with the elbow. You have to wonder how much that's going to linger. He's definitely not going to play tonight. He's probably going to be gone for a while. So they're going to have to need someone to step up and create that power and get that, man. Dude was averaging over 350 in the last 2 months. So that's a big deal when you talk about losing a player like Trevor Story of that magnitude. And it's going to be costly, especially tonight. So win or lose today for the Rockies, they got to make sure they do not get swept by the Dodgers, because right now, half game out of first place. You lose these 2 games, you're looking at 2.5. And if whatever the Cardinals do, they're going to fall a little bit more behind the Cardinals. So right now, what the Rockies need not just to take care of business and get a win, but they need the Braves, who are playing against the Cardinals, who the Cardinals beat last night in a tight game. They need the Braves to come up big and beat the Cardinals these next two games and just to kind of keep pace. Because after that, let's say the Rockies lose these two games to the Dodgers, who again are the third spot right now in the playoffs, atop the NL West. And it looks like it's going to be them and the Braves in the playoffs if everything holds true. We still got 11 games left, but still, you look at trends, you look at who these teams have to play still and how they've been playing lately, and you can kind of come up with a good idea of who's going to be these division winners. But you look at the Rockies and the remaining schedule. So they have these two games at LA left. Then they have three games at Arizona, who is just, man, they're falling like a ton of bricks in sea. So the Rockies need to take advantage of the Diamondbacks. They can't do the same thing they did when they went to San Francisco and lose 2 out of 3. They can't do that. And then after that, they got 4 at home against Philly. You got to get at least 3 of those if you're the Rockies. And then they end the season at home again against the Washington Nationals. Those last 3 teams are not in playoff contention. Now, they're not bad teams. They're above average. But you have to find a way to win these series. And no matter what happens with the Dodgers, you have to look at the remaining 10 games after this Dodger series. You got to go 7-3. 7-3, or you can call it a wrap. Because the Cardinals, again, they got 2 at Atlanta. So if you're a Rocky fan, you have to hope that Atlanta can, get these last 2 at home against the Cardinals. And then Cardinals go back home and they await San Francisco. So you got to hope San Francisco still, being that home wrecker. They've been out, but they're still beating teams who are in this playoff race. If you're a Rocky fan, you got to hope that the Giants play the way they played against you guys. And then they got 3 against Milwaukee. Milwaukee's in that first wild card. So that's going to be 3 tough games there. And then they end the season 3 at Chicago, depending on where Chicago's at. If Chicago still hasn't clinched the number 1 spot, or if they're close to it, you have to wonder if Chicago's going to be full force going against the Cardinals those final 3 games. And that's a rivalry within itself. You talk about Chicago and St. Louis. So Chicago, if they see a chance to eliminate the Cardinals from playoff contention, they're going to bring it. That's how that rivalry is. So if you're the Rockies, man, no matter what happens in LA these next 2 games, hopefully you get a split. I mean, 2 games would be wonderful. If you're able to win these 2 games, you're right there. Obviously, you win these 2 games, you're running the NL West. Let's just be real with it. Nothing's a done deal. I'm just projecting here, and it's not me being biased. I'm just looking at how these teams are built and how these teams have been doing lately, and especially with the Trevor Story thing, man. It's a big deal. He's their best offensive player, in my opinion. And he has been their best offensive player, especially since June. So that's just, again, my opinion. So if you're a Rocky fan, no matter what happens, you got to look at ending the last 10 games against the Diamondbacks, against the Phillies, against the Nationals, teams that are out, not mathematically, but realistically they're out. You got to go 7-3. You go 7-3, you give yourself a good shot to either fight for that division, but more so that second wild card spot with the Cardinals, because that's what it's looking like. It's looking like Rockies or Cardinals for that second wild card. And then you have Dodgers and Braves. They're going to fight for 2 or 3. I'm projecting here. I'm giving y'all what it is right now. And right now, the Dodgers are half a game behind the Braves. So if the Cardinals continue to give the Braves issues and the Dodgers continue to give the Rockies issues, you're going to see the Dodgers jump into that 2 spot, which makes a little bit of a difference because 2-3, they're going to play each other no matter what. Now it's just who gets home field. That's going to be the difference. Now, home field to me in baseball isn't that big of a deal, but you would still prefer to play 3 games at home as opposed to 3 games on the road. Let's be real with it. So just to break it down, the Cubs are at 88-62. They're the number 1 spot overall. And I'm not going by division. The Braves are 83-67. They're number 2 overall because they lead the East. The Dodgers are 83-68. Half game behind the Braves. They lead the West. They're the 3 seed. So right now we have that Braves-Dodgers matchup. That's what it's looking like. And in the wild card, you got the Brewers, who they're going to get in. They're 86 and 65. The Cardinals are in the fifth spot, which is the second wild card. They're 83 and 68. They're 3 games behind the Brewers. So unless the Brewers the Brewers have the Reds, 2 games with the Reds. They got 3 more against Pittsburgh. Unless they decide to say, you know what, let's just tank it, the Brewers are going to get one of them spots. More so, they're going to get that home game and that wild card game. And you got Cardinals and Rockies. Again, 83 and 68, 82 and 68, respectively. So if you're the Rockies, man, you just want to keep pace with the Cardinals, and you're hoping, you're either 1 game out or tied going into that last 3 to 4 games of the season. Then hold on to your seatbelts. But right now, we already holding on to our seats, man. We buckled up. We ready to go for this Major League Baseball last 11 games. We got a week and a half left of baseball, folks. Come on. Hopefully your team is in it. Hopefully you're not a Marlins fan. Hopefully you're not a Detroit Tigers fan. Hopefully you're not a New York Met fan or a San Diego Padre fan. Come on. If you're a fan of one of these teams, man, you locked up and ready, because all these teams get into the playoffs, 5 on each side, anybody can come out on top. Now you look at the American League, I still say anybody can go out on top because they're the stronger league. But to tell me that for a fact the Red Sox are going to dominate the Astros and or the Yankees and or the Athletics, and then you throw the Indians in there, man, that's going to be a toss-up. I think the Indians are probably the 5th best team, and the record shows that. But again, you have the 5 teams already locked up in the American League. You got the Red Sox at 1. You got the Astros at 2. You got the Indians at 3. And then 4 and 5 wild cards, you got the Yankees and the A's. It remains to be seen who's going to get the home game, because the Yankees are only 1.5 ahead of the Oakland A's. So that's going to be interesting to see. Baseball is going to be great here in the next week and a half, and then going into the playoffs, man. It's wonderful. We getting into the fall season. We watching these games where these players start wearing the hoodies. Man, y'all going to start wearing the hoodies. Pumpkin spice everything. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're talking about pumpkin spice donuts, pumpkin spice latte, pumpkin spice beer. Yeah, that's how we do it here on the Fast Break Sports Hour. So that's that. I'm getting you caught up on baseball. Let's jump back to the NFL, like Emmanuel Sanders, Peyton Manning over there in the corner. I got TD somewhere up here, and I got him over there, but you really can't see him. Bobblehead status. And obviously, we got the Dodgers in the back. We going full force. Had me scared here the last 2 or 3 weeks. But we right where we're supposed to be. LA Dodgers first place. They're taking off the rest of this week, man. I'm sorry, NL West, but we had to do you like that. Make you think like you got a shot, but then it's just like, come on. No more child's play. This is where the big boys come out to play. Yeah, I rhymed play with play. I don't care. I do what I want. This is my show. Let's get back to the football, because that's all I got to say about baseball for now. Catch the games tonight. Series are still in the middle. Game 2s in a lot of these series. So check your local listings or get on that Reddit and find a free game. That's what I do, man. I'm smart with it. I watch all the Dodger games. But let's get back to the NFL. Let's get back to a team that's 1-1, the defending champions, Philadelphia Eagles, and their decision to say, you know what, Carson Wentz is ready to go. We putting in Carson Wentz this week. It's a smart move, because you cannot get anything less than what Nick Foles has provided. Not to say that Nick Foles has been horrible. He hasn't been horrible, but he hasn't been good. He's been about average. Nick Foles has been playing like a backup. Let's be real with it. He has a pretty good percentage passing wise, 65%, but it's a lot of dink and dunk. You talk about 451 yards in 2 games, not bad, 225 average. But the 1 touchdown, the 1 pick is good. The 1 turnover is good. But he also has a fumble. But besides that, the 1 TD is not enough. You're not producing enough plays to win games and try to rely on this little short, safe game. So it's obvious, even if Carson Wentz is at like 90%, and you can wish that, let's put Nick Foles out there for another 2 games, that would make sense if your next 2 opponents were an NFC or a division foe. But with your next two opponents being from the AFC, you have nothing to lose if you're the Philadelphia Eagles and putting in Carson Wentz. And let me tell you why. Because when you talk about AFC versus NFC, those games really do not affect. Obviously, a loss is a loss. Let's be real. But when it comes to tiebreakers, losses to the other conference team, they don't mean anything. So if you're looking at it, you have the Indianapolis Colts coming to your place, and then you go to Tennessee the week after. So those are two perfect games for Carson Wentz to get ready. This is basically his preseason. Obviously he's going to play the whole game, without having any setbacks. And let's hope there's no setbacks. We don't wish that upon anybody, especially not on this show. We want everybody full force. But with Carson Wentz going against the Indianapolis Colts this week, it's a perfect way to say, you know what, let's go out there, let's get some experience, let's get everything back. Let's see if let's get the muscle memory back. Let's get the gameplay back to normal. Coming off an injury, obviously you got to test it against NFL players. And not only that, but just how you release the ball. Getting your timing back with the receivers, just getting your timing back within yourself if you're Carson Wentz. Perfect time to do it against the Indianapolis Colts. And then perfect time to do it the week after against the Tennessee Titans. So you have 8 quarters to prepare your team at home against the Minnesota Vikings. Because the last thing you want is to have Nick Foles out there and then you're 1-3 because you lose to the Colts and you lose to the Titans. And then you want to rush Carson Wentz in there for a Thursday night game. No experience, you're going to set him up for failure. And if you think about it, if you're 1-3 at that point with Nick Foles, you're going to be 1-4 with the Vikings. So with Carson Wentz, let him get back to Carson Wentz. Maybe they split these two games. You're 2-2. Now you're ready for that Thursday night game, a big game when you look at where the Eagles are going to be in the division. And this division is going to be it's going to be real close. I don't see this. I don't see a 12-4 coming out of this division. Just keeping it real. So the smart thing to do, put Carson Wentz out there, bring him along the way he needs to be brought along against two AFC foes, one at home, one on the road. Get him ready and say, you know what, it's all yours. Thursday night against the Minnesota Vikings at home. Hopefully Carson Wentz is full force by then. He might be full force this week. You never know. Maybe the 2 weeks did him good. Maybe that was enough. I'm going to sway to the side that he still needed another week. But just play him, Put a nice little game plan. Let him get his feet wet for the 2018 NFL season. Then the week after at Tennessee. Hey, these are winnable games if you're the Eagles. You don't have to do that much. You don't need Superman Carson Wentz to win these next 2 games. I know the Colts got Andrew Luck, but they're still a team, and it's the same thing. Andrew Luck is still trying to find his form, and as a team, they're still trying to, they have a lot of young pieces. They have a lot of holes on their team. So perfect time. And then your Tennessee Titans, Mariota's out with an injury so far. Don't know when he's going to come back. And even when he does, he's not a quarterback to where you say, oh, man, if Mariota's starting at home, we can't beat them. That's a 50-50 chance, even at home, for the Tennessee Titans, for you to go in there and take that win. So perfect time to do it. I think Doug Peterson's pulled the trigger at the right time. Even if Carson Wentz is a week off, man, let's get him some playing time against the Indianapolis Colts and then have him figured out so that by that Thursday night game, week 5, opening up week 5, man, I'm already jumping the gun. It's week 3. When we talk about week 5 and you're going to open up with the rematch of the NFC Championship game and Carson Wentz is it, man, Carson Wentz versus Kirk Cousins, that's going to be incredible. So good job for the Eagles putting in Carson Wentz. It's time. Nick Foles is just, again, like I was talking about, treading water, average play, nothing to get you over the top. Let's bring Carson Wentz back so that, the week 5, week 6, week 7, we got old Carson Wentz back in the fold trying to get his MVP status back on track. Quarterbacks, man. That's the topic for today. We're going to go back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yesterday I said, hey, even when Jameis Winston comes back, there's no reason to go to Jameis Winston. You need to get rid of the quarterback or let him be your backup and then figure out what you're going to do with him at the end of the season. Jameis Winston, to me, needs a change of scenery, my opinion. But, and not so much for his play on the field because it's been up and down like a young quarterback would. But he's not getting the wins and he's still acting like an immature, you know what. So, Ryan Fitzpatrick, you ride this until the wheels fall off. And maybe the wheels don't even fall off. That's the intrigue in this. Maybe this is new Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe this isn't explode in 3 or 4 games and then fall off. Let's figure it out. Let's see what you have with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And that's exactly what Deshaun Jackson said yesterday. When asked about Jameis Winston and coming back, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, basically, when you have a player that's hot, and he's doing no wrong, and he's looking like the NBA jams where he's on fire, and he's hitting it from everywhere. You don't say, you know what, let me stop playing or let me pull this guy out. You keep taking the shots. You keep hitting that three until something happens, until the game's over. And Deshaun Jackson's right on point. I'm pretty sure everybody in that locker room feels the same way. Why would you disrupt a 2-0 going into, now obviously he's going to start because Winston isn't available to week 4. But why would you even entertain the thought and believe that Ryan Fitzpatrick can sustain this type of success? Monday Night Football at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers team that struggles against the pass. You saw Patrick Mahomes. You saw him throw 6 touchdowns. The Steelers have yet to win a game. The Steelers cannot stop the run either. Now, not to say the Buccaneers can run the ball because they haven't shown that yet with Peyton Barber. But when you have a quarterback that's throwing 400 yards each game, 4 touchdowns each game, man, you just let them sling it against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers right now, they're pointing fingers at each other. Antonio Brown is like, man, it's all about me. Give me the ball. I don't care about my teammates. I just want yards. I want receptions. I want targets. He's thinking about life after football. And I'm not talking about when he retires, but life after football, off season. He wants commercials. He wants all that stuff. Badass receiver, top 2, top 3 receiver, even to this day. You could argue he's a top 10 receiver all time when you talk about Antonio Brown and his whole career. But his attitude just is uncalled for at this moment, especially with them still struggling to get a victory. 0-1-1. Remember, they tied against the Cleveland Browns? Yeah, they tied against Cleveland Browns. You don't want to carry that with you for long. They got to find a way to get a win. But again, they're pointing fingers. Le'Veon Bell's like, he's sitting back, being a little bit selfish. But he's sitting back like, see, you guys are struggling without me. James Conner had an awesome week 1, struggled a little bit more week 2, still found the end zone. But they're a different team without Le'Veon Bell. And defensively, they're horrible. They're wretched when you talk about defense. So no reason to get rid of Ryan Fitzpatrick, no matter what happens on Monday Night Football. Even if the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to pull this one out, you still stick with Fitzpatrick until you see like a 2 or 3 or 4 game losing streak. Or like I said, Ryan Fitzpatrick goes after and he throws 4 picks, and the reason why they lost was because of those 4 picks. Then you can start entertaining the whole Jameis Winston thing. But not right now. Let Ryan Fitzmagic do what he does. And let's talk about Fitzmagic. Man, Minkah Fitzpatrick, he took that. He copyrighted that before Ryan Fitzpatrick could. That's crazy, man. But he's smart because Fitzmagic, it's a thing. So they're both Fitzpatricks. Minkah Fitzpatrick, for those of you that don't know, plays for the Miami Dolphins. Plays in the secondary. Rookie from Alabama. Badass rookie from Alabama. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to take that for myself. I'm going to copyright Fitzmagic. It's his last name too. So what can you say? He beat Ryan Fitzpatrick to the punch. And Fitzpatrick, man, looking like Conor McGregor in the post game. I wanted to touch on this yesterday, but didn't have time. But the dude's having fun. And that's what you want to see. and his teammates love seeing it. That's the best way to make success continue to roll. When you're having fun doing what you love, you're playing great, and you're feeding off your teammates, and your teammates are gonna feed off of you, and you can see eye to eye with your teammates. Well, not just because they're both 6 foot when you talk about Deshaun and Fitzpatrick, but just in the whole concept of team and the whole concept of growing as a team and winning. They got something going there with Fitzpatrick. Keep it going. Let's see what they do next week, Monday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me touch a little bit on this Browns-Jets game. I'll talk about it more on Thursday. No show on Wednesday. We'll talk about it more on Thursday. But we got the Browns, we got the Jets. We got Sam Darnold, rookie quarterback, who was picked number 3 in the draft. And we got the Browns, who their backup quarterback is Baker Mayfield, who was picked number 1 in the draft. The reason why I bring it up is Tyrod Taylor is a starter right now. They have yet to win a game. Yeah, it's only 2 weeks, but they haven't won a game. So what I'm wondering, because you add that and you add, the productivity that Tyrod Taylor has brought to the table, and I have to wonder, why not on a shorter week against a team that's playing a rookie quarterback, against a team that's also rebuilding, why not put Baker Mayfield and say, you know what? We're going to give Tyrod Taylor a rest. He's been getting hit a lot. We're going to try to rookie out Baker Mayfield. We have nothing to lose. I mean, you look at Tyrod Taylor's stats. He's throwing 53%. He has 2 TDs, 2 picks. Okay, average. Below average completion percentage. And whether you want to tailor that to the receivers they have and just the decision making or whatnot. Yeah, what's up, Mike? What up, Big Mike, man? Thank you for joining the show. You got to put Baker Mayfield out there for Thursday. The Jets do have a pretty good defense, but this is going to be low scoring. The Jets aren't going to be high flying, so this is the best time for Baker Mayfield to go out there, get his feet wet, and then you know what? Play good or play bad. Now you get 10 days to get the kid caught up for his second game. I think this is the time where you got to put Baker Mayfield out there. Obviously, it's coming up Thursday. They haven't said nothing, so it doesn't look like it's going to be Baker. But this will be the perfect time to do it. Baker Mayfield versus Sam Darnold. There you go. Browns aren't going anywhere. This is your number 1 pick. Now, if the Browns are 2-0, or even if they're 1-0-1 because of that tie against Pittsburgh, then you could think about, hey, you know what? Let's leave Tyrod Taylor in there. We have something cooking here. But you still haven't won a game. And Tyrod Taylor is not your future. And I like Tyrod Taylor. I'm not hating whatsoever. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. But since he's not your future, this is a perfect time to put Baker Mayfield just to see what he has. And if he just falls on his face, you can go back to Tyrod Taylor. It's not going to mess up your playoff chances because you weren't going to get there anyways. But that's just my point of view. I think Baker Mayfield should get the shot on Thursday. He probably won't. He more than likely won't. It's not even probable. But my take is you put him in right now. You let him go against the Jets, toe-to-toe against Sam Darnold. Let the best quarterback win. Because both of these teams have pretty underrated defenses. Not bad when you talk about the Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Oh, man, if these teams had offenses that were going, you would talk about playoff contenders because of the defenses they carry. So that remains to be seen. That's just my thought on Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. I'll speak more about the game on Thursday before the Thursday Night Football. And again, it's already here, man. Football, you're so great. Man, we're 2 days away from week 3. You give us that little football fix. You give us a reason to eat like crap, to drink like crap on Thursday. Thank you, NFL. I appreciate that, man. Week 3 in full effect. I don't care if it's the Browns and the Jets. You guys did it smart by making the Browns and the Jets week 3, when they have somewhat decent records, as opposed to making it week 8 when they're both 1-7. Or in the Browns case, 0-7-1. So, good job. Thursday Night Football, man. Loving it. Want to see these rookie quarterbacks. Browns need to put Baker Mayfield out there. Do something with it. Baker's just waiting. He's clamoring, man, chomping at the bit to get up in this game. Baker Mayfield, to me, is going to be a winner. Whether or not that shows up in the statistics, whether or not that shows up in his gameplay, the dude's a winner. He has that Tim Tebow aspect where he's like, no matter what happens, I'm going to do my best to win. Now, obviously, he's a better quarterback. I hope. I believe he is. You got to let the kid play, man. There's nothing more to see here for the Cleveland Browns. You done gave up on Josh Gordon, rightfully so, sending him to the Patriots. It's time to start letting your future play. What are you holding back here? Why are you going to go through another 3 or 4 weeks of misery to decide to put in Baker? Or to say, you know what, if we beat the Jets with Tyrod Taylor on Thursday, we're 1-1-1. And we're back in it. But realistically, you're not. And you won't be. This is the Jets. Okay? Now, if you lose to the Jets, then you got bigger issues. Especially that being a home game. This is going to be the Browns' best chance to get a victory at this point without Baker Mayfield. My opinion, that's what I view. But I'll talk about this game more on Thursday, before Thursday Night Football. Couple more things I want to get to that kind of, caught my eye. So they already have the underdogs and favorites. Las Vegas already has the lines on these games. And they do that, immediately after, each respective game or whatnot. And 2 of them caught my eye. Not because I don't expect these teams to win, but because I think the number's a little bit too high. And I'm not telling you guys to go out there and bet. This is just something that I'm thinking about. Like, it's a little bit too high for me. So the Philadelphia Eagles, who have now decided to start Carson Wentz, okay, understood. Badass quarterback. Top 5 quarterback when healthy and on his game. Are a 6.5-point favorite against the Colts. They're at home, but to me, that's still a little bit of a high number. Because I think Carson Wentz is going to have some of the growing pains. And the running game isn't too stout to say, you know what, we can just run the ball 30, 35 times and then throw 15, 20 passes. I still think they're going to, let Carson Wentz do what he do with a little bit of a leash. But not just that, is Carson Wentz already there full force? So 6.5 to me is a little bit high. You have to wonder if throughout the week that number goes up, or if it goes up, man, if it gets to 7 or 7.5, you better take those points and go with the Colts. Just my point of view. I will still take the Eagles in the game, but it's going to be like a field goal game. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts pull this one out. That's just what I view. And then the second game, not because I'm a homer, but just because how I view these 2 teams defensively. And though the Denver Broncos made Derek Carr look like Joe Montana, they still only gave up 19 points. But still, they could not stop the short passing game. And that's what it was, a short passing game. They had a couple of deep ones in there, or intermediate that turned into deep run after catch. But when you talk about the Broncos defense and the Ravens defense, to say any team should be favored by 5 points that's pushing it again. And the Ravens at home are favored by 5 points. Get into the whole Vegas and betting thing. 5 points to you might seem like, well, that's nothing. I can see the Ravens winning 24-17. That's more than 5 points. So they covered. But in Vegas terms, 5, 6, 7 points means for a fact that team's going to win. Okay? And to say the Ravens, who are 1-1, who got manhandled by the Cincinnati Bengals, it was a Bengals home opener. I get it. And I know the Ravens blew the doors off the Bills in week 1, 47-3. But look who the Bills are. And the Broncos, 2 games at home, barely winning at home. I understand that. Against the Seahawks, against the Raiders, 2 0-4 teams. I think they're making too much of that. I don't mind them picking the Ravens winning the game. If I was a betting man, I would probably pick the Ravens by a field goal. But to me, 5 points is pushing it slightly. And it's the same thing. If this gets to 5.5 or 6, you run to that betting window and take those points. Because if I'm telling you right now, I'm a humble Denver Broncos fan, man, to the death of me. Biased. If I had to pick the game right now, I would pick the Ravens to win 20-17. But that's the kind of game I kind of see it. It's going to go either way, but I'm going to give it to the home team by a field goal. But not by 5 points in Vegas standards. That's just something I want to throw out there. That's something that caught my eye early on. The Rams are favored by 7, rightfully so, but it's the Chargers, man. You never know. Just some little things I throw out there. But speaking of Vegas and doing these little crazy bet things, so Antonio Brown on a little Twitter reaction yesterday was talking about, well, trade me and see how I do with another team. So Vegas took this by the horns, and now they have a prop bet that says, which team does Antonio Brown get traded to? And obviously the favorite is him staying with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You win nothing. It's like minus, man, it's a very heavy number. Like you would have to bet like 2,500 just to get 100 back for him to stay with the Steelers, which is, maybe a good investment, but I don't think anybody would do that. And it works both ways. So the favorites are the Cardinals and the Browns at plus 1,000, which means if you bet 100 and he gets traded to one of these teams, then you get 1,000 back. It's not bad. They're the favorites, Browns and Cardinals. But he's not going to get traded. Pittsburgh's not going to do that. But it's just funny to me how Vegas takes this and they're like, you know what, let's spin it. Let's try to make some money. There's going to be some cuckoos out there that are going to put 100 on the Cardinals, that are going to put 100 on the Browns, and that's easy money for Vegas. By any means necessary, let's make that money. And that's what they did with this. That was interesting. I wanted to put that out there. And last thing I want to talk about, now, I'm going to end the show, but then I'm immediately going to start my top 10 ranking because I'll do this show and then I'll do a separate top 10. So this show might be over, but stay tuned for my new top 10. It's a new top 10, man. I'm just telling you. Stay tuned for that. But it's the last thing I'm going to talk about on this show, on the Fast Break Sports Hour, not top 10 NFL rankings. I was looking at this and this was interesting. 2 weeks into the season, it's hard to say this is who your team is. 2 weeks into the season, we know you're a playoff team. 2 weeks into the season, we know you suck. It's hard to do that, right? But this was very telling. When you look at stats and you look at how it defines a team and whether or not they're winning, this was one that was like, wow, like it's obvious, So I was looking at the teams that were able to stop the run the first 2 weeks and the teams that were not able to stop the run the first 2 weeks. So look at this. And you guys might be like, well, obviously, but it just shows you that stopping the run is bigger than stopping the pass. Pass is whatever. But if you can stop the run and you're willing to stop the run, you're going to win. And these stats provide it. So you look at the top 8 teams when it comes to run defense. Top 8 teams are the Eagles, the Buccaneers, the Bengals, the Bears, the Rams, the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins. Okay. All these teams have a win. Out of these 8 teams, 6 of them are undefeated, and obviously the other 2 are 1-1. So these top 8 teams against the run are combined 14-2. And they're stopping the run. The Eagles are only giving up 58 yards a game. The Buccaneers, 67 yards a game. All the way down to Miami, who's 8th, giving up 79 yards a game. Now, teams ain't trying to run the ball that much, but if you're able to run the ball, you're going to win some games. And if you're able to stop the run, you're going to win some games. Now let's look at the other side. Teams that cannot stop the run. The bottom 5 teams in the NFL that cannot stop the run. You talk about the Cardinals, who are number 28, the Giants at 29, the Steelers at 30, and then the Raiders at 31, the Lions at 32. What do they all have in common besides not being able to stop the run? They're all defeated. They're combined 0-9-1. You can't stop the run, you're not going to win. I don't care who you have at quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger's on this list when you talk about teams that haven't won. Derek Carr, who I don't think that highly of, but some people do. Matthew Stafford, Eli Manning. These guys aren't winning because their teams can't stop the run. And that's what I take from the first 2 weeks. And we'll see how this trend continues throughout the season. But it's one of those trends, man. It's one of those things where NFL does not change. If you're able to stop the run, you're going to win. If you give up running all day, you're going to lose. Again, you stop the run, you're 14-2. You can't stop the run, you're 0-9-1. It's there. I didn't make this up, And it can be basic for a lot of you, but I'm just giving y'all the real. I was trying to look for something that says, you know what, this is why these teams are winning. That was the only stat that made sense to me, where you saw the trend of these undefeated teams in the top, in the top of the stats, in the rankings or whatnot. So that was very telling for me. That's just me. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's just what I got for y'all. And again, stay tuned, because immediately after this, I'm going to do the top 10. And that's like a 6-minute show. But the top 10 did get mixed up. We have a new number one, and we have 2 new teams that jumped into the top 10. Stay tuned and find out here within the next 2 to 3 minutes who is number one. Thank you for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour. Love y'all, man. I'm out. Yeah. Peace. Love y'all. Live your day to the fullest. Do it up. You determine your life. Peace out.